Welcome back to Rugby Obsession, everybody. If you're as obsessed with rugby as we are, hit that subscribe button so you don't miss any of our deep dives.
Absolutely.
And today, we're tackling a really hot topic, a potential game changer. Could South Africa be leaving their Southern Hemisphere roots and joining the Six Nations to create what some are calling a Seven Nations tournament?
It's a fascinating idea for sure.
Yeah, there's a lot to unpack here. And we've got some intriguing insights from rugby legend Sir Ian McGeechan to guide us. He's been making a pretty compelling case for this shakeup.
He has. And what's interesting is that he isn't just calling for change. He's laying out a vision, like a real roadmap for how this Seven Nations tournament could really benefit everyone.
Exactly. And I think it's important before we jump in, just to make sure everyone's on the same page. The Six Nations, as many of you know, is the premier annual rugby tournament in the Northern Hemisphere.
The big one.
It is. It features England, France, Ireland, Scotland, Wales, and Italy. Adding South Africa with their Powerhouse Springboks, that would just be massive.
Seismic shift.
It would.
Yeah.
And to understand the context here, I think it's important to note that South African teams are already playing in the Northern Hemisphere as part of the United Rugby Championship, the URC.
Right.
This league brings together teams from Ireland, Wales, Scotland, Italy, and South Africa, so it's already giving those Southern Hemisphere players regular exposure to Northern Hemisphere rugby, the styles and competition.
Different kind of game up north, for sure.
It is. It is. So let's dive into McGeechan's arguments here. What are some of the specific things he's saying? Why does he think bringing South Africa into the Six Nations would be such a good thing?
Well, he really highlights the Springboks' physicality. They're known for it.
Oh, absolutely. They're forward dominant.
Exactly. And he suggests that their inclusion would force Northern Hemisphere teams to adapt, elevate their own game to compete.
So it's like he's saying that the current Six Nations teams might be, getting a bit too comfortable with each other. A shakeup could be just what they need to push their limits.
Yeah, I think there's some truth to that. He even uses specific examples like the Springbok scrummaging prowess, which historically that's been a major weapon for them. And he believes this would, force Northern Hemisphere teams to really rethink their scrummaging techniques.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Which would lead to a more dynamic competition, more exciting for everyone.
It's easy to get stuck in certain patterns of play when you're competing against the same teams year after year.
Absolutely.
And speaking of patterns, if you're loving this in-depth analysis, hit that subscribe button to make sure you don't miss any future Rugby Obsession deep dives. Now, it's not just about the on-field competition, right? McGeechan also makes some pretty compelling financial arguments.
Oh, yeah, for sure. He talks about a massive increase in global viewership if South Africa joins. You're drawing in fans from South Africa, obviously, but from beyond as well.
A whole new market?
Exactly. And that would lead to, think about it, more lucrative sponsorship deals, more money coming into the sport. It creates a truly global rugby experience.
A global game. And he even draws parallels, to the British and Irish Lions tours.
Yeah.
Where fans travel, en masse to follow their team. Imagine that kind of excitement and passion injected into the Six Nations every year.
Oh, it'd be incredible, just electric. McGeechan really sees it as a win-win situation, More competitive rugby, more revenue for the sport, a more vibrant fan experience. Everyone benefits.
That sounds like a dream.
Yeah.
But of course, as with anything, there's always another side to the coin. What are the arguments against expanding the Six Nations?
Well, yeah, McGeechan paints a pretty rosy picture, but, the Six Nations organizers haven't exactly jumped on board with this idea.
Haven't they?
No, not really. And their concerns seem to be, more on the practical side, logistical challenges and potential disruption to the tournament's traditional format.
Right, so what are we talking about here specifically? What are some of those hurdles?
Well, scheduling is a big one. Think about it. Trying to fit another team into the existing structure, you'd have to rework the entire fixture list. And that could lead to conflicts with the club rugby schedules and other international competitions.
That's like calendar.
It is. And then there's travel. We can't forget about that. South Africa is significantly further away than the current Six Nations teams. Longer travel times for players, potentially higher costs for fans traveling to away games. It adds up.
It does. And let's not forget the more emotional aspect of this. The Six Nations has a long and storied history, a lot of tradition. Some fans might be worried that adding a seventh team would dilute its identity, those traditional rivalries that make it so special.
I think that's a valid concern. There's a lot of nostalgia attached to the tournament. Any change is going to be met with some resistance.
Of course. And then, of course, there's the elephant in the room. We can't ignore the fact that South Africa is currently part of the Rugby
The
Championship.
Southern Hemisphere's equivalent.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So how does that factor into all of this?
Well, that's where things get really interesting. Recent reports suggest that negotiations to keep South Africa in the Rugby Championship have actually stalled.
Falls.
Yes, stalled. And some people are speculating that this is a strategic move by South Africa. Maybe they're trying to put pressure on both hemispheres, see what they can get, trying to secure the best possible deal for their rugby future.
So they're playing hardball. Well, this is definitely a fascinating crossroads. Where do you think we go from here? What's the future hold for South African rugby, their potential place in the Northern Hemisphere?
Well, th- it's hard to say for sure. The logistical challenges are real. The tradition aspect is important. But, those potential benefits, those are undeniable. More competitive rugby, more revenue for the sport, a truly global game. It's exciting. Ultimately, I think it comes down to what South Africa values most.
Do they stay loyal to the Southern Hemisphere, or do they embrace this bold new future up north?
Exactly. It's a choice that could reshape the entire landscape of international rugby.
Well, there you have it, folks. Another Rugby Obsession deep dive. Don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss out on any of this exciting rugby talk. We've got more great discussions coming your way. But before we go, we want to hear from you. What do you think about all of this? Do the pros of a Seven Nations tournament outweigh the cons? Let us know your thoughts in the comments section. We really love hearing from you.
Absolutely. Weigh in. Let us know what you think.
Thank you for listening to Rugby Obsession.
See you next time.
We'll be back soon with another episode.